Good evening. It is good to have you at Four Corners Festival's last event tonight. What a good evening it is. Not an evening for me to talk about rugby, but if you want me to talk about soccer, I could talk to you all night long. In fact, phoned the guys this afternoon on the board, on the committee, and asked them if we could just have a Thanksgiving tonight, but they wouldn't let me. You are very welcome to the Four Corners Festival's last event, Breathe Out. And when I talk about board and committee members, I think I would like at this point to thank so many people who have made it possible. I'm naming the board and the planning group in no particular order, but Martin McGill, Gladys Scaniel, David Campton, who you will hear later, Jim Deeds, Heather Palmer, Ed Peterson, Tony Hennessy, Steve Gregg, Ruth McRae, Jared Stevens, Milena Yoder, George Sproul, Lacey Meyer. Big thanks for all the work in the past year. Martin O'Brien, who's our press officer, has done a magnificent job at getting us into local press. Alan Mabin and the guys right here at Accidental Theatre, Richard Lavery with Martin and Emma, have been getting us in this year of difficulty to be virtual every night without too many hitches, none in fact that I'm aware of. And finally, Megan Boyd, our administrator, our hard drive, without whom there may not be a festival. I'd like to thank them all. And of course, friends of the festival who pay in every month in order to keep us afloat, and those who have given donations in previous years and again this year. If you want to donate or become a friend of the festival, you will find it at fourcornersfestival.com. And the funders who do give us an enormous amount of money every year to be able to do the amazing things that we've been able to do this past week. And finally, then the contributors who have given us so much food for thought. When we planned Four Corners Festival 2021, we knew the general terrain that we would be traversing. COVID was major in our heads, but Brexit was there too. And of course, sectarianism is always there. And we were aware with all those general things that come February 2021, we would need to take a deep breath. We needed a deep breath of calm, but we were also aware that the city needs a breathing out of hope. And even as a wonderful festival has rolled out this week, we have been aware of the bumps that have appeared in the road just in these last days. As we begin our final event, we acknowledge bloodshed on our streets, tension rising across our city and in our politics. And like recovering sectarians, it seems that we need to be aware that at any moment we can fall back into our old ways and divides of sectarianism. We are all recovering. We need to breathe in calm, grace, shalom, and breathe out compassion, forgiveness, hope. It's not lost on us in the planning group and in the board of directors this year that this is the first Four Corners Festival since the untimely death of our dear friend Glenn Jordan last June. Glenn might have been, I think, the first person that Father Martin and I telephoned when we came up with this ridiculous idea of a festival. He was a significant player in the early days of the Four Corners Festival. And so I've thought a lot about Glenn this week. And then, as if there is another power, Glenn's book literally arrived on my mat this week. Borders and Belonging, the Book of Ruth, a story for our times that he's written with Padraig Ó Tuama, who we had at the festival last Sunday night, and one of whose songs was sung by Duke Special on Friday night. And this book's interesting because what basically the guys are telling us is that we need a liturgy. And the Liturgy of Ruth in the Jewish tradition is read alongside the law. And it comes as a story of personal challenge in the midst of a bigger picture of God moving across the world. And we need to have stories, to tell stories. Let me just read something that grabbed my attention as I was preparing for this. as I looked at the first chapter of the book, Glenn says these words that seem to be appropriate, particularly for tonight. In such diverse times, it's a real challenge to find words and actions that embody our conflicts in healthy ways by naming them, by holding them up to public scrutiny, and through corporate engagement to find ways of healing. It is a challenge because in the practice of our faith, we know that congregations and parishes, families and friendships have fractured under the pressure of our differences. Excuse me. Faith leaders sometimes think that worship should be the very place where people can find respite from the things that divide us in the rest of life. But good liturgy, which is the kind of liturgy that emerges from the reality of human lives, does not shirk from standing right in the middle of the noise and tumult of our times and mediating the divine to us. We must dare to find creative and apparently disruptive couplings of words and actions that both reflect back to the reality of the divisions we face by naming what it is that divides us, but also alert to what we have missed because of the distractions of our conflict. Stories that Jesus used. There's a bit in the Message where Eugene Peterson says, when Jesus was asked, Eugene Peterson translates it this: why I tell stories, Jesus says, is to create readiness, to nudge the people towards a welcome awakening. Last year at the festival, Damian Gorman, who we're delighted to have later this evening, talked about stories as Eucharist, broken to feed us. That's what tonight's about. It's about breathing in where we are, maybe the right stories, and breathing out the right coupling words as we name the things that divide us, the things that get in our way, and breathe hope and love and compassion across Belfast. I am very excited to introduce you to Becky Hemingway, who at this stage is pretty much a kind of house band, her and her husband, Randy. Now, Becky, they're coming to us, by the way, from Dundalk tonight, where they have moved from America to live. And I'm looking at you and I'm thinking, were you watching Duke's special on Friday night? Well, I need to look like a pirate to become a Duke's. What's
Yeah, he was talking a lot about being a character, but in this case, it's a medical necessity. I went in for an eye appointment on Wednesday, and as I left, the doctor informed me that I would look a little bit funny for the next 2 to 3 weeks. So I'm sparing you all from what's underneath. So.
Thank you for continuing to sing for us. You had a new album out this year. Tell us about that.
Yeah, Earth and Asphalt is an album that my husband Randy Kirkman and I finished during lockdown, and we're pretty proud of it. It turned out well. We recorded most of it at home, but we did get to sneak away to Dublin for a few days to work with Connor Brady and mix it at Campton Studios in Dublin. And it's 11 songs, and a lot of them are about just kind of longing for connection and figuring out where we are at this stage in life, I guess.
I don't want to go into a Duke special evening because we have so much more tonight.
So good though.
But what a record, and it's an amazing record. And I think the thing that amazed me is you moved to Ireland to make your Most Americana album, which was quite interesting for me.
Yeah, it seems like the longer we live here, the more American we sound. Maybe it has made us, it's amplified the differences to us. I'm not sure, but I think part of it too is just as I grow older, those influences that my father exposed me to when I was younger. He was a real fan of folk artists and bluegrass artists and a lot of that kind of thing. And I think as I get older, those roots are starting to sprout a bit more.
Interesting. Well, when we were thinking about tonight, the album was playing in my head, and I was thinking there's a few songs there that would be incredibly helpful. And one of them is Lay Your Burden Down, which is what you're singing now, which is kind of the breathe in of the festival, I think. So sing it for us. Thank you so much.
Okay. into your hands I commit my spirit and this wasted life. Lying on an unmade bed, I prematurely grieve tonight. The mail has stopped, the phone don't ring. We can't decipher hot from cold. We don't know anyone in this town. This loneliness is growing old. Lay your burdens, lay your burdens, lay your burdens down. Where's the hill that help comes from when friends are scarce and money's tight? I've seen the sunlight break on through, but it's the middle of the night. Tearing clothes and rending hearts, we look for mourn's new mercies. Wipe our tired eyes to find no view on the horizon. Lay your burdens, lay your burdens, lay your burdens down. Lay your burdens, lay your burdens, lay your burdens down. Down where you can reach. It's not for you to know. No, it's not for you to handle everything. Did you hang the stars in place? Did you tell the moon to shine? Do you have such little faith? Did you forget that you were mine? Did you forget that you were mine? Lay your burdens, lay your burdens, lay your burdens down. Lay your burdens down, lay your burdens, lay your burdens, lay your burdens down, lay your burdens down, lay them down, lay your burdens, lay your burdens down, lay your burdens down.
Hi, Becky, thank you as ever for your unique contribution to our festival and a dramatic contribution this year with your eye patch, which leads us smoothly into our next item. Our friends from Play It By Ear have also been a regular part of our festival in recent years. This time last year, they had just come back from a tour of Europe where they were touring a play that they had done, No Man is an Irish Island, where they explored the issue of refugees and asylum seekers who had seemingly turned up on an unnamed West Coast Irish island. Tonight, we pick up the story of what was happening on that island a year further on in the midst of lockdown.
Right, let's see now. Put that in here. Very good. And one more of these fellas. Fantastic. That goes through there. Now, if I put that there in a second, leave that for a moment, and see if we can get this bit sorted now. And oh, right, that's not quite what I intended. Right, well, let me see. If I put that... Oh, dear! Hello? Gracious! Oh, Ned, are you okay? Oh, Mayor Thomas! Mayor Thomas, thank goodness you showed up. Just the man I wanted to see. I'm actually in a bit of a pickle. Could you give me a hand, please?
Well, Ned, I would love to, but social distancing, the restrictions, I don't think I can come near you. In fact, as you're in the community hall, should you not be wearing your mask?
Oh, right. Well, I was Mayor Thomas, but I put it down for a second, and it appears to have been woven into the cross, actually, so I'm very sorry about that. Although, come to think of it, Mayor Thomas, can I not ask you the very same question? You see, you are the mayor of this island. Surely you should be setting an example for the entire community.
Yes, Ned, but actually my mask is on my desk. I thought I was alone here. I didn't expect anyone until I heard your screams.
Oh, well, it just goes to show one must be prepared for every eventuality.
Yes, that actually brings me to my next question. What exactly is this eventuality?
Oh! Right, yes, well I'm building a giant 16-foot tall glow-in-the-dark St. Bridget's cross.
St. Bridget's Cross?
Aye, for the St. Bridget's Day Parade.
The parade?
Yes, Mayor Thomas. Oh, I tell you, it's going to be some extravaganza this year. People said we couldn't top the 15-foot tall cross from last year, but I tell you, we've really gone the extra foot. To get it, Mayor Thomas. Because the cross is measured in feet rather than miles. Because building a cross in miles, that would just be mad stuff altogether. No, we wouldn't. Oh, wait. Maybe that's a good idea, actually. Maybe we could have a 16-mile St. Bridget's Cross next year. Oh, I tell you, Mayor Thomas, I tell you, I'm full of ideas, I am. It's something about St. Bridget's Day, you know, her generosity of spirit, her inherent creativity, the start of spring, it brings out the visionary in me, Mayor Thomas.
Yes, Ned, we love your enthusiasm, but, well, there's something I need to tell you, with the current situation.
Oh, don't worry, Mayor Thomas. I am fully aware of all the current restrictions and regulations, and let me assure you, we are going to make sure that everyone is completely compliant.
No, that's not quite what I'm trying to get at, so...
Oh, well, the thing is, Mayor Thomas, let me just explain, okay? You see, we're going to have a 16-metre gap between each float. The traditional 3-family, 3-leaf clover, well, that will simply become a 1-family, 1-leaf clover this year. Although I must say the Kingstons were kicking up a bit of a fuss about that. They said it was their turn to be the Holy Spirit this year. Very disappointed they wouldn't get the chance. But as I said to them, we must all be adaptable in these trying times. And after all, in my opinion, the ethereal nature of the Holy Spirit lends itself to a reworking of the float, in which usually they just pretend to be a big leaf, don't they? So this will be much better. Oh, and actually, that reminds me, Mayor Thomas, I've ordered one of those giant disinfectant tunnels, you know, like you see in the movies. Well, we'll have that at the end of the parade route. Everyone will pass through, and everyone will go home as clean as a whistle.
Yes, Ned, and obviously you put a lot of thought in this, but I'm afraid we're going to have to cancel the parade.
I'm sorry, what?
We're going to have to cancel the parade, you know, in light of the restrictions. We just thought we had to think about, well, public well-being.
Right. But what about the reenactment of St. Bridget herself, donating her sword to the poor man? I promise, Mayor Thomas, we won't get as sharp a sword as last year, I promise.
No, Dave, it's not the sharpness of the sword, it's just, I'm afraid we can't go ahead with any of it. But
what about the spreading of her cloak over the Curragh of Kildare? I've commissioned a very, very, very special and very expensive cloak this year. It covers 3 square miles, Mayor Thomas.
And that is impressive, but I'm just afraid it's not to be this year.
Oh. Well, that's a bit of a shame, isn't it?
It is.
It's just I put a lot of hard work into it this year, Mayor Thomas.
You always do.
And it's always so special, you know, the way everyone comes together as one big community, and we celebrate the end of winter and the start of something new.
Yes, even when it's -3 degrees, eh? And, well, you remember old Jack, don't you? The year his hand turned blue. We thought he got frostbite.
Oh yeah, and it was just his pen leaked. That's
Yes.
right.
Ink over his entire hand.
That's right, yes. Well, I suppose that's what it's all about, isn't it, Mayor Thomas? Making memories, isn't that it? Yes, Mayor Thomas. And I just felt, I suppose, this year of all years, that's what we really needed. And that maybe the parade could have helped with that, but I suppose it wasn't to be.
No, you're right. It wasn't to be, but there's always next year.
There is that, Mayor Thomas. You're right about that. There's always next year. And you know, actually, Mayor Thomas, I'm going to make sure that next year is bigger and better than ever before. In fact, I'm going to go home right now and start planning that 16-mile cross. Oh, yes, Mayor Thomas. Oh, that's a brilliant idea. I'll tell you what. You can cancel this, Mayor Thomas. You can cancel that. But do remember, you can't cancel the spring. Oh, no, you can't. And you can't cancel me either.
Fantastic, fantastic. We don't want to cancel Becky Hemingway and Randy Kirkman, but fantastic stuff. We're really, I'm imagining the 3-mile cloak. And anyway, enough of that. Well done, guys. Thank you to Play It By Ear, because they, like Becky and Randy, have been with us down through many years. Becky, told you the name of the festival, and it seems as if you've come up with a song that actually is original and for the festival in some ways. Is it called All This Numb?
It's a song that I've had this music kind of sitting around and half done for a while, but when we started talking about the theme, it came to mind for a couple reasons. There were a couple things that helped me to finish it for tonight. And one of them was that I was reading through your poetry, Steve. So, and I know I warned you about this, but I was reading through one of your poems called Be Gentle, My Heart, and some of the words there just seemed to fit nicely in helping me finish the lyrics. And so I rearranged them a bit and stole them. And so I think we have a co-write.
Janice, we can retire.
A bit.
We can retire.
Yeah, I wouldn't hold my breath on that. Keep breathing in and breathing out. But the other thing that happened was I was listening to a segment on the radio, and this woman was talking about how we as humans deal with trauma, say something like a car crash or a gunshot wound, that often, we don't even feel that what has happened to us initially, and it allows us to keep going until we reach a place of safety, like say the ambulance or the hospital. And it's only really then, when we're in the proper care, that we feel the full impact of what's happened to us. And then we process pain. And at that point, we can communicate what's going on and receive the healing and the help that we need. And I thought our souls are a little bit like that. And so, it sort of helped me finish this song called All This Numb, and this idea that often we get to this place of safety, or we get in the proper care for our souls, and we're a little bit baffled that pain is what happens next. But it's actually a step toward the healing that we need. So I hope that makes sense for those who need to hear it. This is All This Numb, and maybe it's just a chance for us to breathe and maybe stop avoiding some of the thoughts that we stay too busy to think and that sort of thing. So. It's going away. It's going away. All this numb is going away, and here in its place the feeling comes. Oh. When the first bell rang, we sat silent, senses reeling, without words to say. as the summer became fall, we tried to stand tall and trust you with everything, and we stand, sometimes we fall, but heaven's healing is made perfect in surrender. So I am breathing in and breathing out, breathing in and breathing out, and it's going away, it's going away. Oh, this numb is going away, and here in its wake the feeling comes fix my eyes on love, won't deny it's tough to trust you when I must forgive. So defiant, so reliant on your mercy to move, to breathe, to live. I am working toward a better understanding. I am learning there's no easy honesty. Grateful for the grace that offers softer landing. I am breathing in and breathing out your peace, and it's going away, it's going away. Oh, this numb is going away, and here in its place the feeling comes. It's going away, it's going away. Oh, this numb is going away, but here in its wake the healing comes. Oh, healing comes.
Becky Hemingway, beautiful new song, especially for Four Corners. I can see you applauding there, and it would be wonderful if we were in a room where we could have that kind of applause. I mentioned earlier the book by Podrick and Glenn Jordan, and it is this. It's Borders and Belonging. It's about the book of Ruth, and I'm delighted to talk about this book for a moment or two because we have Damien Gorman with us. And we had Damien wonderfully at the festival last year. He gave of himself to us in incredible ways. And I went searching last year for a book of Damien Gorman's poetry, and there wasn't one. And at last we have one. Damien, why now, after all this time, to bring out? And of course, it's not just a book of poetry, because it's an amazing kind of memoir written in not very memoir-y style, but really about your own journey and personally and as a country, and there's all kinds of other stuff in it. Why now for this wonderful book, As If I Cared?
Um, well, first of all, Steve, thanks for inviting me to be part of this. I feel like this is the non-religious interlude to some extent, but you've made me feel very welcome. Why now? Well, the reason there wasn't a book before then is just because I am as odd as a 7-penny bit, and that's the truth. Now there was audience, you know. I made television programs. I used verse in a lot of them. I made plays, and there was, you know, verse. Sometimes the whole play was in verse, you know. But I just didn't do it. I didn't pull the poems together in a book, and the reason it happened at all is because the Junction, whom God preserve, in the person of Maureen Hetherington and also Eamon Baker was involved, they said to me, listen, what about gathering some of these pieces together? Because as my son keeps saying to me, if you get hit by a bus in the morning and nobody has been to a reading of yours, they'll just have to take it on trust that you ever were a poet, you know. So it was the idea of the Junction, the publisher, that's why it has come into being.
It's fantastic, and I mean, you're very honest and vulnerable in the book, and you start the book with kind of talking about your father, and it's not all glowing, and you finish with the last words that you love him, and in between there's your whole life, almost your own children are in there. So when they said you need to write it, and when you listened to your son at last and said, if you're gone or hit by a bus, you need the book, how did you piece that together? What were the ways you went about doing that? Because it's very intentional, it seems to me.
Well, I just do what I always do when I want to write something, which is I hum it over. I hum it. I kind of, I take it with me. I send it in a way, this sounds awful, but I send it to my subconscious as a job. I say, get you on with that. Because I think if you sit there and worry about your creativity and demand that the muses come to you, it doesn't work. But if you, even as a little trick, if you send it as a job to your subconscious and say, you get on with that, and I'll turn up at my desk in the morning at 9 o'clock and have something for me. You know, it's interesting now what you mentioned about my dad. That was a difficult thing for me, because just for anyone who hasn't read the book, which would be most of you, my dad was someone who it's just a fact, you know, he let his fists do the talking. And as you rightly say, the last words of the book are, I love you, Dad. But I just want to be clear about that, even for people who have read it. The book is called As If I Cared because, as I explain, my writing is better than me. My bits of vision are better than me. When I sing in a poem, that's better than me. And it's like a prophetic thing that I throw in front of myself. I try to behave as if I cared, and then I grow into that. So I say that at the very start, and the last words, I love you, Dad, are said as a challenge to myself. They're not said simply, they're said as something that I want to work towards, despite everything that's mentioned in the book, you know, because there was more to him than somebody who lifted a heavy hand, you know. So anyway, in fact, let me just say, I wasn't going to mention it at all, because I've tried not to get involved with anybody else's story or to sequester anybody else's story. But, and this is relevant to another of the Four Corners events, Soothing Breath, the one about domestic abuse. I just decided to myself very late in the day, if somebody hits you regularly and continuously, that becomes part of your story. That becomes part of your story, and you're entitled to speak to it.
You tell us you did last year, and again this you've shared that you're the not religious part of it, but you preach better sermons than I do, my friend. You know, I'd love you to be my preacher anytime, but I want to let you go now. Not let you go. I want to let you go in your muse. I want you to say to your subconscious at this point, okay, right. Get on with this, and just give us some words and break the Eucharist of your story to us and feed us, please. Thank you so much for being here. Right. And by the way, Sid to Duke special, you two need to meet, and you haven't yet. So
we haven't. No, we have. That'd be nice.
Make that happen.
Well, listen, thanks again. I'm going to take this out now. I'm going to take the the headphones out because I'm completely deaf in one ear, and it throws me to wear these things. Can you hear me all right still, David? Yeah, you can hear me.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I have, just to let people know, I have about 12 minutes. I'll certainly not go beyond that. So I'm going to read you, or say to you, 4.5 pieces from the book, as if I cared. And just as a wee thing of my own, I would like to dedicate them all this evening to Greta, whose mommy died earlier in the week on Bridget's Day, on Monday there. So Gajay Anam Slan, Gajay Tizi Slan, as we'd say in Irish, may her soul go well. So when I was thinking of what I should say to you tonight, I was thinking about what this is, which is the final night of Breathe, and what I've seen of it has been wonderful. What I've heard tonight, I love the songs from Becky and her husband. So when I think of the word breathe, it has a sense of relaxation and comfort and so on. So I thought maybe I should pick the 4 or 5 bounciest bits in the book, and there are some, and just string them together. And because hope is a big theme of the festival, that's what I should do. The only problem is I am not Skippy the bush kangaroo. That is not me. That is not me. And also, while there are, air pockets in this book, I hope, and there's humor, I think myself that if you are going to sing, or if you're going to reflect on hope, it has more substance, it has more bone, if you like, if you reflect at the same time on what you might be hoping your way out of, if you see what I mean. So there's that kind of duality to these pieces that I'm going to read you. And the first one's very, very short. As Steve mentioned, my dad, and as I mentioned, my dad, as we used to say, lifted his hand a lot, to the extent that my mum left for a long time, and we all were, quite seriously hurt by him at one time or another. And as I say in the book, it made you contract as a human being. It made you go like that. But there were bits of hope as well. So here's a little bit from a chapter called Party Pieces. I don't remember Dad hitting Mum in our house in the Mournrise estate, though for the rest of us, the fear was still palpable, as was the sense of being able to exhale when he wasn't there. Every Friday night, he went out to play poker or bridge. He was a very good bridge player, and one of the many disappointments that I brought him was an inability to retain even the rudiments of the game, despite being the one at the red high at the grammar school. When the cat was away, the mice used to have wee concerts. And for a long run of Friday nights, the rest of us would be joined by Marie, a young woman whose parents' mum used to work for, and who herself was very kind to us all, and Michael, a kind English teacher who played the guitar and was losing his hair. We all had wee party pieces. Mums varied between recitations like Ireland's Queen or My Dear Little 55, and romantic ballads such as Just a Little Love, a Little Kiss, and Put Your Sweet Lips a Little Closer to the Phone. My 2 youngest brothers used to smash it with their full concert a cappella version of Bohemian Rhapsody, and Michael would wow us every week with Ralph McTell's Streets of London. I loved those evenings. We all did, because they were safe. They were places of sanctuary. They were safe havens of good-natured fun, evenings when you could expand rather than contract, and I remember hoping that they would never, ever end. So that's a wee bit. Now, hope, I think, for somebody like me anyway, hope needs props. Hope needs my hope needs real things that you can put your hand on, or as I said, props. And when I was in my early teens, hoping very particularly to get into the company of women, I had an invisible prop, which was an invisible watch. because I had come to two conclusions about what women want and what women like. And one is that they like you if you have a watch. We lived in a caravan, I couldn't afford a watch. And the other thing that I had observed somehow or other that women liked was if you held your head like this. If you held your head over to the side, and if you had a watch, well, that combination was just unanswerable. So I used to walk around for about a year, the year in which I was 14, looking with the head like that, gazing at an invisible watch. I had no watch. I would go into the swimming pool. I would go into the sea in Newcastle County down my hometown and have a lingering, quite sexy look at my non-existent watch and carried my head over to the side until I had a crick. So I want to read you a wee bit from round about that time of the invisible props. And so this is to do with women and trying to get in contact with women. And it's from about the year, as I said, of the props. The little chapter that this is taken from is called "Oh Now, How Long?" So I longed for the company of girls rather than fellas, but being in a single-sex school, I had no real idea how to access it. For a period that didn't seem to matter, as I was going to be a priest. I went on the odd retreat for young fellas thinking in that direction, but it soon became clear to the vocations director and then to me that I hadn't what it took. I hadn't it in spades. And if I'm honest, I kept the idea that I might be a priest alive beyond its time because of my dad, for it lowered the threat level for me, who was perhaps one of God's anointed in its chrysalis. He even told me once that he would scrub floors to send me to Maynooth. It was good while it lasted. The thing about preferring the company of women has lasted to this day. But as I said, back then, I hadn't a clue how to speak to them, or more accurately, I hadn't a clue how to cross the distances, the seemingly vast distances between me and them to get into talking range. And I was looking for clues all the time. I used to listen, for example, to the bigger boys in our school smoking hut in the hope that a clue or two might drop to the floor from their lips, but they never did. And it was worse than that. One day, one of the bigger boys said to me, "Well, Gorman, I saw you talking to Magella after Mass on Sunday." And indeed, I had been talking to Magella. I was giving her a message for her dad about a fish order from mine. I smiled a manly acknowledgement that yes, indeed, I had been talking to an actual girl. And, continued the big lad, did you get anything? Now, the truth is, I did not know what there was to be got, which was unfortunate. As the smoke room grew silent, hands clasping reeking fags were stilled and all eyes were on me. Hi, Gorman, what did you get? I mean, what was one supposed to get outside 11:30 Mass? But I had to say something. And I said, or rather whimpered after an age, "Oh, you know, just the usual." And the place erupted in joyous hacking coughs. So there we go. So listen, while I may not be someone who has, if you like, the hope of heaven, which I would say maybe quite a few people listening to this. And by the way, thank you for letting me come from my home into your home. Thank you. But while a lot of you may have the hope of heaven, I don't. But I have an awful lot of hope. And I would also say that in the darkest places that I have been in my life, I have found light or the ingredients of light. That's true. So far, that's true. Even in the presence of death. That's just been my experience. So I want to read you a wee bit, which finishes with a very short poem, and then I'll just do one more thing after that. And this is about the first time, I mean, I mentioned Greta and her mommy, the first time death really broke the door down around me. And that was in relation to my mother's death, younger than I am now. So I just want to read you a wee bit about that and an extraordinary thing that happened in that time. And it begins when Mum has come home from the hospital to die, basically. She came home and my dad was good to her. Everyone was good to her. A complete stranger, for example, arrived with a fragment from the true cross, never known to fail. But neither that, nor knock, nor Lourdes, nor a visit from some kind of monk made any difference. Mum began to drift in and out of sleep and then in and out of comas. Around the end of November, I thought that she would never awaken again. But when I was visiting on December the 2nd, I heard a noise on the stairs. I rushed out to see Mum edging down them in a determined daze, if there is such a thing. She was clutching her handbag and she looked as if her clothes had been thrown at her rather than put on. Is it your daddy's birthday? She asked me, and I had to think. But she must have been thinking of it somewhere inside her coma, and she was right. It was. I tried to urge her back up to bed where any decent person in her condition should be, but she was having none of it. She told me that she wanted to get Dad a birthday present, and if I wouldn't go into town with her, then she'd go on her own. She was a woman on a mission. Several missions, in fact. And in the course of the next 2 hours, she bought Dad a wee present. She called on the doctor and chemist to thank them for all they'd done for her day and night, to give her relief from the pain of her pitiless illness. And she even insisted on taking me for tea and a bun, though her energy was leaving her. I got her home and walked her up the stairs to bed, and she thanked me for taking her into the town and even managed to smile. She never walked down the stairs again, and she died a week later. I think that all of us would say that whatever compassion is in us, whatever bit of selflessness we have, has its source in this woman. I actually don't think she knew how to do a bad turn on anyone. I wish I'd known her when I had children myself, and I wish that they had known her and she'd known them. I know that it was my mum's example which ultimately taught me to leave the cave, pierce the fog, and try to enter the world as a net contributor if I could at all. It's through her example that I know we belong together as human beings, that the small streams of our lives have a point of confluence somewhere. And tiny wee poem, which I actually wrote for my brother who died very tragically, but it would finish Mum's thing off as well. And it just says, there's something I meant to say to you before you went to sleep. It was too late in the day, but it'll keep. So I suppose, though I don't have a hope of heaven, I mean, communication, trying to engage in a kind of whale song, you know, in a sonar that goes beneath the surface, because communication is my vocation. I suppose I dream of being able to communicate beyond this life. But anyway, so I want to finish off with a poem, because that's my main thing. Hope seems to me to touch on and arrive at the door of love in the end. Hope touches on love, reaches for love, and maybe it's the point of arrival of hope is love. So I'm going to finish with a wee poem about love and the north of Ireland. So, and I will be shot if I don't say to you, by the way, just on behalf of the publisher, if you want to get hold of this, the way to do it is no alibis in Belfast. You can order it through them. They're out of it at the minute, but they're getting a third lot in, and Little Acorns in Derry, or just go to the Junction, Hetherington at thejunction-ni.org, and Maureen will sort you out. Okay. A couple of years ago, to mark 50 years of the start of the Troubles, I was asked to go to Derry, London Derry, and spend time with people, and then write a piece of my own devising to mark 50 years since everything started in the most recent episode. And it was open-ended. I didn't know what the piece would be. I went, because I live in Wales now, I went as a Welshman-ish, and I listened to people, and then I wrote something. And I was really surprised by it. But I'll not say any more about it. I'll just tell you what it is. It's called Field Notes. 50 short lines, 50 years since the start of the Troubles. And this is me finished, by the way, so don't worry. And I'll maybe just say it to you from memory rather than from hand. And it begins with a little line from Rumi, from the great Persian poet Rumi. Out beyond ideas of wrongdoing and right doing, there is a field, and I'll meet you there. Out beyond ideas of wrongdoing and right doing, there is a field, and I'll meet you there. So this is called Field Notes. What could make a difference? What would matter a damn? What could change the course of us in the long run? What have we put in the way of rolling once more over the cliff? What have we never tried, or never enough? What could heal our politics? What could ring the bells, bring us to the table as more than furniture ourselves? I am trying to avoid the word love as something just too vague. I am trying to avoid the word love like the plague. What could take us to that place where grief is like the sea, to ask if there is anything we can do? What could bring us to those people hungering for right, to listen to their stories through the night? What could place us near to someone, driven from their mind by hurt or fear, in order to be kind? I am trying to avoid the word love so as not to be laughed out of sight. I am trying to avoid that word with all my might. What could make us leave the tracks that are already laid and pin us down like things already said? I am trying to avoid the word love like a fully loaded trap. I am trying to avoid the word love. But why would you do that? For love is thought that has a bit of thought, is feeling with an inkling what to do, is something in us knows within its heart that there are hearts in other people too. It stands for something clearly, like a whin bush on the road, beautifully resolute and gold. And is the fulsome, real love enough? Could keep us going when the going's tough. A love that is magnificent or mild. Love like Solomon's, reaching for the child. Thank you.
Damien, thank you so much. I would take your non-religious wisdom and sermons and poems any time. We are just so thrilled that you've somehow found us and we found you at this festival, and for you to give us our time, we are thrilled with that. Maureen, by the way, was on the chat line trying to sell the book already ahead of you. So
Okay, all right. I was embarrassed about that, but
she knows what she's doing, but I used to manage musicians and always said any angle, every angle, you can never mention the book enough. So, so do go and find that. And Damien, thank you so much for coming in tonight.
Thank you.
From Wales. We're back to Becky, and I should say, you know, Earth and Asphalt, we can't forget that that's the name of your new record as well. Any angle, every angle. Let's keep it up there. And your last song for us tonight's a song which in some ways is a wonderful way to take us into our closing meditative way out of the festival, because it's a song called Comfort. And I think part of the breathing in of this festival has been to try and find that sense of comfort, that sense of hope and love that Damien has been sharing with us. So just sing it for us, Becky, because it's wonderful.
I don't know how to follow that. That really was the perfect way, but we'll add our little benediction to it.
I think this blends nicely, Becky. I think this blends nicely. There's something going on here. You just do your bit and we'll put it together. But thank you for that.
Okay, so this is Comfort, and like Steve said, it's on Earth and Asphalt. And, comfort, comfort to those in pain, tears for all of your losses. May you have many to carry your load and resolve to try again. Oh, we know the road can be winding, and although the world can be cruel, there's a love eternally binding to carry us through, to carry us through. So mercy, mercy on all who fail. Human we have been from birth. So may we be mindful of wonderful truth, that our deeds are not our true worth. Regrets, we all may have many, and redemption may seem hard to find, but take that path that narrows before you. Leave them behind, leave them behind, for freedom, oh freedom to those in chains. One day your suffering will cease. So be they of iron, of grief, or of sin, we pray for your release. And for comfort, oh comfort to those in pain, tears for all of your losses. May you have many to carry your load and resolve to try again.
Zoom windows. It's a strange experience doing all of this on Zoom. It's really a bit like being back in church, while sometimes we're too holy to applaud good things, unless of course it's children, where we seem to be released to applause. But we really want to applaud all that has been contributed here tonight by Damien, by Becky and Randy, by Chris and Ross, in what has been really a little miniature festival of creativity at the end of this astounding festival this year. I don't think that any of us on the organizing panel really believed that we could manage to pull together such a powerful festival online this year. And yes, of course, it's always improved by having people in the room. But I want to thank all of you who have been back and forward to various events and have contributed to making this year's festival all that it is. Steve's already thanked all of the contributors who have inputted in front of the camera, but you who are audiences are part of this too. And of course, all of the technicians working crazily behind the scenes to make all of this happen. But Steve mentioned earlier on about a liturgy, and in the words of our friend Glenn Jordan, and it, yeah, I drew the short straw in trying to draft that liturgy. But we remember, of course, that liturgy, we sometimes reduce liturgy to being just a matter of words, whereas actually the origin of the word liturgy is about action. It's about action and a sense of urgency. Some people say to us, why don't you organize other events throughout the rest of the year? And that we have a self-denying ordinance within the community that we won't do that. And part of that is because we just wouldn't have the puff. We wouldn't have the breath to be able to do it. Anyway, we'll all be collapsing in a heap after this. And actually, Alan and Richard and the folks in Accidental Theatre, probably even more so, given what we have put them through this week. But actually, there's a reason. There is also the fact that the Four Corners Festival is only ever an initiator. It's a pump primer. That we want to pass things on. All that we do, we want to pass on. This week is a collaboration of lots of different creative talents, but we in the festival want to collaborate with you in doing even greater things. And that's what these words at the tail end of this mini festival tonight are all about. But given that it's all about collaboration, I couldn't very well sit here and lead those words on my own. And so I've invited a friend to join me to lead in this. Someone who's not, you can't blame her for anything that's gone on in the festival. She is a very faithful friend of the festival, but not part of the organizing team. It's Diane Holt. Many of you will know Diane from other places. She's a singer, a choir director, a community development worker, and I've known Diane for more years than I can possibly remember. But actually, one of the reasons why I wanted Diane here with me tonight is not just those various skills, but Diane is the person who taught me to breathe. It's a true story. That back when we were mere striplings, we were youthful thespians, and while I enjoyed strutting the boards as an actor, and wasn't too bad as youthful boys attempting Shakespeare can be, I had absolutely no training. And while I breathed day in and day out, I didn't necessarily know how to breathe for the stage. However, Diane, she had done all these classes and she was a singer and knew how to breathe. And if it hadn't been for this woman, I don't think I could have got through those, because she taught me the exercises that I needed to learn those skills. So it's great, Diane, to have you with us tonight. As a singer and performer, I mean, how important is it for you to think about your breathing?
Well, I mean, thank you, by the way, for that. I mean, to be honest, I'm sure I hardly taught you to do a huge amount. I think you did a lot of that yourself,
Oh no.
especially at the age of about 16.
Mm.
Maybe my speech and drama was there, but it's the core. It's the core of when you sing, and to be honest, it's the core of when you're speaking to try and project your voice. But it's more than that. It's the core of you that you're using. So when you're using your breath correctly and you're using your resonances, and you're in a much better place, you're actually able to communicate your emotions. You're actually able to get the message across. So I think that's really, and I mean, in singing, which is a much more athletic form of breathing, you're using those intercostal muscles, you're using your diaphragm. If you didn't have that, you wouldn't be able to see, you'd be going flat, you wouldn't be able to support the breath. But it's about color, it's about tone, it's about resonance, and but it's about connection. And it's about connection with yourself and the audience.
And I suppose that, I mean, one of the reasons I wanted to raise that with it is that we take our breath for granted, and it was said in the service this morning just how much we take our breath for granted, but also within a spiritual sense, how much we take God for granted within all of this, and we need to work at it. We need to work at that breath in order, as you say, to communicate. But last night in the Q&A after the Art of Life and Breath, I asked Trevor Gill from Bright Umbrella about the place of creativity and the arts and coming out of lockdown, and in terms of community development and reconciliation. And you've worked both in the creative arts and in that field of community development. Have you any thoughts on in that field at all? In the
well, I mean, I really think it's very interesting, because when I left the Lincoln Newton Arts, where I was director, and we'd done a huge amount of peace and reconciliation work, I formed a community choir, and actually that community choir is probably the most cross-community thing I've ever done in 86% Protestant Newton Arts. It has been amazing. And there's something about the relationships that you establish when you're singing. You make yourself vulnerable. And I think there is a vulnerability about all sorts of different art forms that enables you to connect with emotion. And there's something about it that enables you then to articulate things that we don't in everyday life. We struggle in everyday life to articulate. So we struggle to articulate emotion, we struggle to articulate love, we struggle to articulate grace, and we struggle to articulate hope. And I think it's those things that we do in the artistic world. And even if they're simple things, like every Monday night at the moment, we're bringing together the community choir on Zoom. Because of the different internet speeds, we have to mute them all. But every week, without fail, there's people there on Facebook Live, there's people there on Zoom, like 30, 35 people turning up week after week after week. And they've been doing it since last April. And there's something about the connection that's really important, that they really need. And we try to use songs that actually also touch your emotion and give you hope.
Yeah. But this year in the festival, I mean, we're the Four Corners. It's the Four Corners of Belfast that is our primary area of mission. But of course, with this being online today, this year, this festival has gone much further than Belfast, and indeed tonight, we've got people from Dundalk, from Wales, even from Newton Arts, here sharing in this evening's event. But we've gone global this year. But of course, your work has essentially gone global in recent years in some of the work that you've been doing, trying to bring lessons to us from some of the work, particularly within Africa, and vice versa in supporting some of the projects there. But of course, in recent months, we've become very insular. If anything, the whole vaccine thing in this past week, the spat between EU and GB and vaccine nationalism. I mean, we're all inward looking, yet the rest of the world is trying to cope with this as well. and some of the areas that you've been working probably with less resources. Are there any things that we need to hear and actually maybe need to learn coming out of that environment into this?
Well, one of the things that people rarely think about is hope. Actually, the places where I've been, even though sometimes it's the slums that are maybe in Kenya, in Uganda, some of the worst places, the hope that exists there at times is tangible, and we sometimes forget that. And I think what we've been trying to do in Thrive Ireland is bring global learning, for our understanding, particularly learning from places that we would often see as lesser, as weaker, and that we think that maybe we have to go out to save. And yet I was working with a number of peace builders out there who have brought huge inspiration to me. And I think that we can find things there that we can't hear each other here anymore. But actually, when we hear it from another context and another perspective, suddenly something shifts and we're able actually to begin to develop an understanding again. So there's something about the hope that's there. But I do think there's one thing, we've learned one thing, and that is that they're doing some brilliant stuff around advocacy in some of those countries. And the church has not really got to grips with how they can actually advocate. And maybe one of the things that people could do that's practical is write to their local MP and actually say, look, rich countries have bought 14%, they're 14% of the world's population, and they've bought 53% of the 8 most promising vaccines. If we're not all getting vaccinated across the world, we're not really all going to be safe. So it looks like it's going to be 2023 in some African countries before they're actually going to get everyone vaccinated. So, I mean, lots of stuff around hope, and, that we think depression and despair when we think about Africa, but no, what I have found is hope, and I have found a real understanding of things that we've maybe lost here in our very busy world where we don't take time to take breath.
Well, look, thank you. That was, a bit of a whistle-stop tour of, the arts, the world outside. But Dan, I asked you primarily to come and share with me in this brief liturgy, and for that to be indicative of that passing on of the baton, that we're now bringing Four Corners 2021 to a close with these words. And Diane and I are going to share in leading them, but towards the conclusion of them, some of the words will appear on screen. And even in your muted form, I would invite you to share in the words that appear on screen as a commitment, as a prayer of commitment to what you might do in the coming year before we come together again, perhaps as Four Corners 2022. I'll lead. Breath of God that hovered over the deep, dark waters in the beginning.
Breathe on and through us, prompting creativity out of chaos.
Spirit of God that brought to life and breath sculpted clay.
Breathe on and through us to inspire and empower.
Wind of God that whistled through the valley where sun-bleached bones of a vanquished army lay.
Breathe on and through us to bring hope and banish death and defeat.
Word of God that was embodied in a crying infant.
Breathe on and through us to give words, voice, and hands and feet.
Spirit of God that descended like a dove to confirm Jesus as the Christ before driving him into the wilderness.
Breathe on and through us to affirm and direct, however difficult the journey.
Breath of God, breathed by the risen Christ on his frightened friends.
Breathe on and through us to bring peace to people in lockdown.
Wind of God fanning the flames of faith at Pentecost.
Breathe on and through us to drive us out of our comfort zones to all corners of the earth.
Breath of God, breathing in and out, day and night, down through the years, beyond the pages of Scripture.
In the words of preachers in pulpits and in market squares.
In pastors and priests, listening to the pain of others and offering words of comfort.
In singers weaving thanks and praise, lament and pain into tapestries of music that lift us into God's presence.
In artists, sharing in God's work of creativity, incarnating imagination in images, releasing fresh form from stone and wood and metals, using breath and fire to form sand into glass in all manner of shapes.
In scientists seeking order in the chaos.
In philosophers seeking meaning in the randomness.
In poets putting pen to paper, distilling words into a stronger spirit.
In politicians working for the common good.
In peacemakers, unafraid to voice uncomfortable truths.
In the everyday acts of faithful service, in shops and offices, factories and fields, homes and hospitals, schools and universities.
In the struggle for breath of those dealing with COVID and other ills made more difficult by this pandemic.
Ruach, spirit, breath, wind of God, uniting us all, enfolding us all, filling us all, in and out, day and night.
Breathe in and through us to enable us to say and do everything, every day, everywhere that you would have us do in the four corners of this city and beyond.
Breathe in and through us.
May we breathe your matchless wisdom, your creative grace, and your life-giving hope.
Ruach, spirit, breathe.
Breathe in, breathe out, run the other way from all the doubt. Jesus, he is here in all our disarray, beaten by the night to resurrection day. We need a breath of hope in this fiery space. In this valley of death, we need a kiss of grace. Breathe out, breathe out. We need a kiss of grace in this valley of death. In this fiery space, we need a breath of hope. Breathe out, breathe out. Will we meet the dark, or will we meet the death? Or will we meet the kiss? Or will we meet the breath? Or will we meet the dark? Or will we meet the death? Or will we meet the kiss? Or will we meet the breath? Breathe in, breathe out. Look up from the dark and see the Spirit is creating. Look up from the dark and you see the light sailing on the sea, tossed around by the swell. Fix eyes, press on, get to know Emmanuel. We need a breath of hope in this dying place. In this valley of death, we need a kiss of grace. Breathe out. Breathe out. We need a kiss of grace in this valley of death. In this dying place, we need a breath of hope. Breathe out. Breathe out. Or will we mean the dark? Or will we mean the death? Or will we mean the kiss? Or will we mean the breath? Oh no, no, will we mean the dark? Will we mean the death? Or will we mean the kiss? Or will we be the breath? Breathe in, breathe out. Run the other way from all